Now that we've seen a couple of ways how to use the roll and the ripple edit tools, along with the slip and slide edit tools, when we are looking at the timeline, clearly we see how useful this is. But to be fair, it's quite fiddly doing this on the timeline owing to the small size. Well, that's where something called the trim monitor comes in. I'm only going to briefly mention the trim monitor, because the latest update to Premiere Pro actually removed it and integrated a much improved version within the program monitor. So if you are looking for the trim monitor in versions prior to, I think it was 7.2, although it could have been 7.1. If you are looking for the trim monitor, go to Window and then roll down and you'll find the option to open it up. But as I say, we're not going to talk about it now because it has been removed and, as I said before, improved and integrated into the program monitor, whereby it's called trim mode. So let's have a look at this. First things first, I'll come down to the timeline. If I place my CTI here and then open up the trim mode, then it's at that point, or near that point anyway, we would see the trim mode in the program monitor. However, I'm going to leave the CTI right at the beginning, just for our first example. And the quick way to open up the trim mode is to simply hit the keyboard letter T as your shortcut, and there you'll see now the view within the program monitor has sort of doubled up, in that on the left hand side we've got that blank frame. Well, that's only because our CTI is right at the beginning, but on the right hand side that's our first frame of our first clip. But what this will allow us to do is to use one of the editing tools, whether it's the rolling edit or the ripple edit or the main trim tool itself, and be able to see exactly what we are doing whilst monitoring this in the program monitor. And you'll see as I roll my cursor up here to the division line, then the now familiar cursor changes shape to reflect the type of editing that we could be doing. Alternatively, just underneath, you're going to see all these buttons. We've got -5, -1, +1 and +5. We've also got a button in the middle that allows us to add in a transition. We'll get back to transitions later on. But for the moment, if you want it to be really accurate, i.e. by the frame, whilst you adjust the division point between two clips, then simply click on +1. As you can see, each time I hit this, down on our timeline, we will now see that familiar vertical red strip to indicate that we are doing some kind of editing. Now, to make this much more appropriate, I'm going to move my CTI across partway through a clip so that when we open up the trim mode once more, we will see a left-hand side frame and a right-hand side frame. The left-hand side will be the last tail frame of a clip, and the right-hand side will be the first head frame for the following clip. Now, even though you might not place your CTI right on the division line between clips here, down on our timeline, wherever you place it, the nearest division line will be used once we click T as our shortcut to open up the trim mode again. Okay, see how it snapped over to that division line in between movie number 68 and movie number 71. Which means now, in the trim mode, we see the last frame for movie number 68 and the first frame for movie number 71. And we've got the relevant timecode overlaid for those individual clips. That timecode, by the way, has been brought in as part of the embedded information that was saved when the recordings were made. By the way, if you don't edit actually on the trim mode, and instead you trim down here on the timeline, well, we automatically jump out of trim mode. Now, I've actually left a gap there. I do want to remove that, so I'll head up to edit and undo it. Okay, now I'll place my CTI here, and I'll hit T once more. So clearly, where I initially placed the CTI was closer to that division line. Okay, so to reiterate then, these buttons here, they allow us to either trim backwards by however many frames we've got that set to there, 5 frames, noticing the shortcut from the pop-up that pops up, Control plus Shift plus left, noticing all the time that however many times I click on here, and because I've now clicked on it twice, I've now moved back by those 10 frames. Well, if you forget how many times you've done this, then you can see a readout just to the left. There it is indicated as -10. Okay, now as good as this is, admittedly still within the program monitor using this trim mode, it is quite small. If you want to enlarge this, well, let's do what we've done in a previous tutorial, in that by having this particular panel selected, the program monitor panel, if we want to expand that panel to fill the whole of our screen, remember how we do this? Come up to Window and then drop down to Maximize Frame. Alternatively, use that shortcut, Shift plus, well, that little symbol, the apostrophe symbol. Consequently, we now see, as expected, this particular panel fill the whole of our screen, which means we can see these views, the left-hand side and the right-hand side, that much clearer and that much larger. Of course, everything works in exactly the same way, clicking on -1 there, or +5, or alternatively, what you can do is just roll over the division line here and choose the type of editing that you want to do. You'll know the type of editing that you are doing simply by the way the cursor changes to a different shape to indicate that type of editing. Okay, now whilst you are doing this, notice also that not only is the timecode reflecting your changes, but down on the timeline itself the CTI moves across to indicate exactly where you are placing the CTI and that division line cut with the new edit taken place. And once you are finished, all you need to do is hit T once more, and that will take you out of trim mode. Of course, we are now seeing the whole of this project panel filling our work area, so we need to move back out of that. Either use shortcut Shift plus the apostrophe, or revert back to using the menu, hitting Window, and then choosing the option there, Restore Frame Size. Okay then, so that's the trim mode, which allows us, as we've seen, to be able to trim at a larger view. Certainly when we use it within the program monitor, and also a much more focused view when we enlarge the particular panel that we are working on so that we fill the whole of our screen.